Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time for another, what I think is one of the more fascinating shows on our network here, the Valhallan Lake Forest Esports Connection. As we continue to explore a world most of us know nothing about, that's exploding all around us, much of it centered right here in Southern California and even Orange County. So let's bring in some people that know all about that. Let's bring in Vincent Yard from Valhallan Esports.
How you doing?
How are you, sir?
I'm good. It's a little hot today.
It is. I don't know what happened. It's been cold and freezing. It's all over the place here. Again, our thoughts and prayers are everybody who's a bad joke about being hot, because obviously fires are still raging everywhere we are here. Any of that changed the esports world? Has any of that affected the esports world? I can't be at home. I gotta be, or I don't know. We've had more and more people. We won't go deep into that, but I know we've had more and more people suddenly say, in weird ways, the fires, which are an hour away from us, are affecting all of us. Not just horrified at what we're seeing, fearing we could be next because we have the same tinderbox ready to go up around us here. But I wonder if somehow you've seen any impact on the esports world, or does that just carrying on its own right now here?
I mean, not really, no. I mean, I've seen a couple
esports tournaments to raise money or something here. Everybody's suddenly trying to jump in and say, we're going to raise money. We're going to have a restaurant. Maybe you should do this. You should do a fundraiser just to help raise money for kids affected up in the area or people affected. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I wanted to actually, we'll move on from that just a little bit, but we'll have our host on here, our host guest for part 2, actually, Bethany.
She's back again. I said she should come back and talk some more. I didn't mean like the next week.
Whoa.
So Bethany Pyles with us here again, esports coach, author, speaker, all sorts of things. I'm fascinated to hear what you guys are going to talk about, because it seems kind of a freewheeling discussion about the esports industry as it's at today. And it isn't just an industry, it's a sport. And what do we mean when you say sport? Do we mean sport like soccer that we all play, or, I don't know, lacrosse, but there is no really professional level or well-developed professional level? Or are we talking about a sport that's on par with basketball, baseball, football?
That's exactly what we're talking about.
We're talking about.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in our first episode with you that we talked a whole lot about the sports side of that, where you know, we talked about players, teams, where it is like right now.
Yeah.
But something that I wanted to bring up today was actually more in the actual industry of it and career paths that, you know, if you are a gamer but you want to maybe pursue something different, what does that kind of look like, really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we definitely touched on the competition aspect of it most of the last time I was here, which is, you know, it's booming not only here in the US, but much more even globally. And so I'll take from some of those trends as well as we talk about sort of the workplace of it and what it looks like to work in this industry. You know, back to your question about sport, it's definitely a sport. And you could argue that chess is also a sport. Anything that's competition, head-to-head, anything like that. It doesn't have to be physicality. There's other types of competition.
You said there's a competition for, what was it?
Oh, that's right.
Excel.
Oh, that's right. I have to send you the video.
I'm going to watch people compete building Excel spreadsheets.
Listen, we can't all be bodybuilders, right? I mean, we got to pick and choose sometimes with our genetics what we can get into. Yeah. But it's definitely a sport. I mean, the magnitude that you have to, you know, put yourself into something like that to be really good at it, it's the same as esports. There's a lot of, you know, nitpicking things outside of just your physicality. So, but let's talk about workforce. You know, I think just like any industry, let's use sports as an example. You know, there are players on the field and they're probably the 1% of that entire economy of that industry. And so, you know, asking a parent and talking to them about, you know, what do their kids like to do? And oftentimes in gaming, it's playing, right? You want to sit and play. You want to be the one actually manipulating those characters, being on a team. That is sort of romanticized and glorified, and it's totally worthwhile, right? Like, there's all these things we talked about last time that you build within that. So 100% keep doing that. But I'd love to address a little bit more of what else is out there. So for myself, of course, I love gaming and I'm a gamer, But of course, I've also sort of crossed the threshold of age of where that's sort of acceptable too.
Because you did play professionally, right? People paid you money to play?
Yeah, I've played in tournaments and money has been involved. And coaching for me was really where I got my foot in the door as far as professionally. So I was the director of coaching at Cloud9, and then that sort of spun off to lots of things. So coaching is sort of where I found my place, and that's why I like talking about workforce, because it's not all about just playing the game. You know, I'm making a career for myself just over the last 7 years or so, just in that realm of coaching. And so you can imagine there's so many other facets to this that you could spend a lifetime investing in that doesn't have to do anything with actually playing the game. Of course, I watch games and I need to play them myself to understand things, but at a completely different level. If you're playing the game and grinding to the top, you're investing a lot of hours just doing that.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for parents to start understanding too that there is marketing involved, there's PR involved, there are, of course, shoutcasters, broadcasters, analysts, things like that, coaches on staff. But outside of even all of that, there's an entire ecosystem that's incredibly well-rounded for any sort of skill set. Right. Meaning you could be an artist and get into this world, right? You could be a musician and get into this world.
Or an engineer.
An engineer, 100%. The coding, actually game design, something that we've been running at Valhallan, using Unreal Engine and things like that to teach kids early on. Even at the age of 6, we have some of our kids starting in Unreal Engine, learning how to manipulate these really intense
Talk about that real
platforms.
quickly if they don't know. I had to learn what Unreal Engine is. It's the gaming. What do we call it? Is it a platform? It's
a tool.
It's a tool. So it's a sophisticated way of making things move in 3D that's way beyond anything. So it's what all games are built upon, so they look realistic. And I bring that up because now they're using 3D, that engine, that software, to make Hollywood movies like The Mandalorian and stuff. So when they integrate the background and the foreground, they're not just in front of a green screen anymore, they're in front of a LED wall, and the LED wall moves and is coordinated to move with them. All that's done with, what is it called, realistics?
Unreal Engine.
Unreal Engine, yes. Right.
Yeah.
So you want to study something about where the future of computer technology and imaging and graphics are going, learn that software, that program.
Yeah, and something just to like jump right back into that, what you were saying was, you know, something I know I heard it from someone or I saw it somewhere, but it said that esports is essentially a show, and like what they meant by that was, you know, you turn on the TV to watch the NFL, the MLB, you know, soccer, anything like that. They've got someone turning on the lights. They've got someone opening the doors. They've got someone doing everything around there to make sure that it all looks good and perfect.
The sound,
for the players.
everything.
Exactly.
And
Everything,
filling up the
yes.
arena, and the sound system, and the promotion and the marketing to put bodies in the seats and to get people to tune in, and everything, and the sales to get the sponsors involved and support
exactly,
it.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's just so many different paths, and it's crazy to think that that can just stem from someone just having fun playing a video game.
Yeah, it
and then all of a sudden they
from
grow
that,
up.
100%.
Yeah, and then they just go to college for game development, or you know, they have something in sound design, stuff like that, and they can make trailers for the tournaments or trailers for the, you know, events that they're gonna be going to and filling out seats for. It's so
you guys
awesome.
get it. Yeah, and it's exciting because it opens up a whole new world sort of sense, in meaning like this industry is so young too. There's so much still unexplored and undone. There's still so much more to do. And so getting into this space now, or even in the next 5 years or so short term, you're going to see incredible growth and scale in the U.S., but it's going to be global opportunities as well.
And is it the
young
Wild
people.
West, meaning that anybody can get in? Because some of these industries are well developed. You want to get into commercial real estate, well, there's a path and the slope. There's a million people doing it. You want to get into healthcare science or whatever, it's a long, expensive deal in schools and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a billion kids doing this. There may not
Yeah.
be a billion kids in the business part of it or the sport part of it yet. It's still pretty new and growing.
It's so saturated with that mindset of being a player. I think that's the only opportunity. And I would say it's not easy to get into this industry. It takes some, I would say, more networking than anything. Sort of like proof of concept. And this is where I've seen myself and a lot of my colleagues in this industry grow, which is they take a small passion of theirs, mine was coaching, And then they focus on that and they sort of blow that up around their own reputation and brand for doing so. And in this space, that's what's fun. So you can build in your own philosophy in this whole thing and build a reputation around it. Getting in and just getting a job is not as easy because it's still sort of growing and expanding. So you've got to kind of be a go-getter and say, I have an idea and let me bring it to the forefront. And you've got to be able to have some proof of concept to have tested those things before. One example is I have a colleague, a friend of mine who loves gaming, got into it, and this may resonate with some of your kids. He really loved watching Twitch streams. Like that was something that,
Oh, definitely.
just really into Twitch or YouTube, that kind of content. And I'm sure a lot of
people
kids
you're watching somebody compete.
Exactly.
Play
That
a
whole
game.
concept of watching somebody, which is very odd to parents. Like, why are you sitting there watching this kid play Minecraft on YouTube?
Exactly.
Whatever. However, he took that opportunity to learn the mechanics of Twitch himself, right? So he's now become his own expert with his own brand, and he's his own Twitch producer, and he can file in a team of people to run an entire production.
Wow.
So if I'm a tournament organizer and I'm doing all this legwork to just recruit kids and get people going, and I have a stream, I can't do all of the back end stuff. Twitch is actually quite complicated, and to run a show like you were talking about, it takes a lot of detail and a lot of planning. So he's writing a run of show like you would a normal broadcast.
Twitch, if you go back, grew out of, I think it was Justin TV.
Yeah, that's
which,
right.
Which was really just a live streaming platform.
Yes, exactly.
And they thought it would be for corporations or for other people, and all of a sudden they found this niche in Twitch. I don't know how they switched to Twitch, and that became a niche for them where they're live streaming players.
That's right. That's right. And that alone, knowing Twitch and some of these tools, you can become your own expert in it, and you can freelance your time just doing that. Same with just broadcasters, casters, etc. Sometimes even your own marketing agency. If you know gaming so well, people look for people who know the space. I love that.
I love the fact that you guys call them shoutcasters, because a number of years ago, and still to this day, I'm live streaming this over our channels, and we have to decide if we're using a shoutcast, which is a particular type of streaming software, and there's a couple others, and shoutcasters are the originals. So somewhere along the way, that name of that streaming software became what you guys call the broadcasters. He's a shout, he or she's a shoutcaster, because they're simply using shoutcast platform to live stream their program.
Yeah, that's right. That's really interesting.
I actually didn't know that.
So you didn't know that?
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't know if there was an origin to that.
Yeah.
I thought they just wanted to be different, not call them broadcasters.
When I take this, I use some software, and I have to encode it into a stream, and then I send it to somebody, and they put it on a server, and they say, do you want to be on a shoutcast server? Or there's 2 or 3 others that you can choose from, shoutcast being the biggest one, and that's where it all came from.
Speaking of shoutcasters, actually, I wanted to ask I kind of wanted to make a little bit of a statement, but also ask a question in a way, because I think that, like, if you're really trying to see how esports actually is and what the atmosphere feels like, in terms of having a passion for gaming, I would recommend that anyone that's listening, and I mean, obviously you guys have probably heard it before, but just turn on someone who's shoutcasting any game. Yeah. And I mean, you'll just hear the passion in their voice. But I mean, do you think that, it's kind of like a straightforward question and kind of common sense, but do you think just making sure that you have that passion for what you want to do really affects like the path that you take in this type of industry?
Yeah, and I think especially in this industry, because there's a lot to lose essentially with it being new. There's a lot of risks sort of taking that you've got to be sort of overly confident about what you love, and I think that comes from passion. That's where the root of it starts.
Can I go beyond that? I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to go beyond that, because this show's had 2 incarnations. We did start it last year, and then we had to stop because the young guy that was running it got a job. And then you guys came along and said, we'll pick it up and run with it here, because you're doing stuff with it. And out of that process, I discovered this idea of shoutcasters, broadcast, because when we went to a couple of tournaments, and hopefully we'll do that again, and I, as an old grandpa, had no idea what was going on. Flurry of activity, blah, 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 and everybody screaming, yeah! I didn't see anything. I just saw a whirl of characters swirling around, and so fast I had no idea what was happening. And a blur of activity. And I said, as an outsider, if somebody could explain it to me, to be what they call in the NFL, the color commentator, give me a little insight about what I'm seeing here. Not just a play-by-play announcer, tell me what's happening, but fill in a little color here. Take me into this world. What's he thinking? What's coming next? What are they doing? Why is this so incredible? That's needed if you're going to reach out to people beyond just the hardcore gamers who get it already. Nobody has to tell them what's happening. They can see what's happening.
Yeah, there's different types of shoutcasters that sort of get that, and some that don't, which is, it is what it is. But sometimes the broadcast will lean so heavy into the audience that's watching, and they can already assume that audience knows a lot already. And so to sort of like take a step back and quote unquote dumb it down for like a parent just isn't on their radar, because they're actually speaking to an audience that's very advanced. And some of these games that have been around for a long time, they tend to be more confusing to watch because they don't do that as much because their audience doesn't want it. However, you'll notice that in a lot of newer games especially, they'll take a break in between matches, and those casters will go back and forth between the stories and sort of storytell who these teams are and who some of these players are. So and so did this incredible thing in the game, but they actually break down who that player is. Like, where do they come from? How long have they been on this team? Sort of what's their mentality like season to season?
And why do they? Why is this a grudge match? And
why is this a rivalry? Why are they? What's holding them back, etc. So that does happen, and it's a huge part of just, I think, the infancy of it too, helping people bring along. And you mentioned turnover. I don't think you meant it in this regard, but there's a lot of it in esports. So those casters do a great job of sort of helping us all understand what the community is really going through. Esports players, just like your regular staff members, they exit, they get jobs, they go to school. So, players on rosters change sometimes 6 to 12 months at a time, like very often, so those color casters are essential in just helping you understand like the actual narrative of what's really going on.
And when we had Mark Deppy on, who I know you're going to have on again sometime in the future here, who set up and runs UCI, University of California Irvine's esports program, one of the first in the country to offer some sort of scholarships, a real pioneer in the field, he said, we do a great job. We can never get enough really good commentators, broadcasters, shoutcasters, whatever you want to call these guys here, who can take that world and that knowledge and explain it to somebody else, to somebody else who may not know, and at the same time talk to those who do without them going, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to watch this because I already knew that.
It's a finesse. Yeah, it's a real skill. And those folks that can do that, they're doing it full time. They're being picked up by large publishers, Riot, Blizzard, etc., to run those things. So, these aren't people that are just like born to do this necessarily or went to school for it. This is a craft that they've honed on their own. And like you said, they're taking into consideration those nuances.
So maybe they have a
skills.
podcast like this, or maybe in my world, they would have studied radio and they ran the local radio station in the high school or the college or something here. They learn to tell stories verbally.
Exactly. And oftentimes, some of them are not great at the game. I mean, it's the same with an ESPN desk, right? Some of them are older or
they never even played the game.
Yeah, they didn't play the game at all to that level. So, yeah, it doesn't actually require in-game skill. It's more exactly that. It's storytelling, being able to understand what's going on in the game itself and translate that for the audience. Totally different skill set.
Yeah.
So I go back to the question of the day to me is it still a sport or is it a game? Is it chess or is it and if it is a sport, is it just relegated to some point in your life? You played lacrosse. I think it's soccer. Every kid plays soccer today. Now the parents say, go play soccer. That's safe. You're not going to get hurt playing soccer. But there isn't a whole lot of opportunity because the pro level, it's gotten bigger, but it's not in this country. It's never been what it is around the world. And therefore, whatever, there isn't as much of an industry built around it. It's growing. I get it. It's changing dramatically but it's still a long way from Europe or South America or the rest of the world. Having said that, I wonder, they keep telling me esports, you go to South Korea and stuff, this is right up there. This is a national sport.
Yeah, that's right.
And people fill up stadiums and watch 100,000 people or 50,000 people on screens compete.
Well, I'll tell you what I think is the most validating thing recently, which is the Olympic announcement. And we talked about this, earlier, but if you're going to validate if something is a sport or not, and then have them come in and add it to their lineup, that to me is quite validating. Like, there's not a whole lot to argue. It's not an esports Olympic thing. It's not this brand new thing that popped off. It's the Olympics saying this is part of our brand. Yes, this is the IOC including it as part of Paralympics.
And how would they turn what game you're going to play? Because esports isn't just one thing. You've got to compete with some game that somebody's created here.
That's right. And the Olympics are going to be incredibly different than what we're even used to here in North America, which is, it's, again, we've got to sort of catch up here because we're a little bit behind on what the world is doing. And we love our Fortnite here, and we love Valorant and Overwatch and these games that are trending in the US. However, the Olympics, they are going to look different. And, you know, Valhallan and Vince and I, we've been talking about ways to sort of, you know, develop those kids young for the Olympics.
Yeah.
Those games that are going to be played, they have to be non-violent, right? So that's the core of the Olympics themselves, right?
Yes.
It's about bringing a global community
Can't
together under
be
harmony
necessarily
and peace.
kill games. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those types of games, whether they're animated or not, whether they're gimmicky or not, they're just not going to be included. At least not right now. So some of the games that they're highlighted, and they've highlighted in the past because they piloted this a little bit, is eFootball is one. eFootball is very similar to FIFA. It's just a different title, but eFootball is free to play. And so globally, it's very accessible. Another one's going to be sim racing. Sim racing 100% will be there. Sim racing is interesting, obviously, because you can do a crossover into actually real driving. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but they're building a facility in the U.S. now that will have a real racetrack. It's an actual racetrack. But the facility inside is going to be a training facility with sim racing. So their goal is to actually take those that are really great at sim racing and either let them compete in sim racing as is, or let them transition into actual driving. And that's already happening, but on an Olympic scale. So this will be an Olympic training center just for the sim racing.
Which then enters the world that this, we're at UCI's Applied Innovation Center. It's filled with people doing virtual reality and augmented reality.
Yeah.
For training of all sorts, military training,
Exactly.
teaching a doctor,
Yes.
remote things. So they create a world, and you can go into this and that. Before you have to fly the plane, you fly the plane
Exactly.
in the simulator.
The one I saw actually was I'm blanking on which quarterback, but the starting quarterback for.
I saw that. Was it Washington Commanders, I think?
Yeah, it was Jaden Daniels.
It was.
Yeah,
I saw this too.
So
yeah,
he was actually doing VR simulations of him taking snaps and being like watching film at the same time and just kind of getting his head right for the game and practicing.
I think they have a whole system where, so if the players are at home, I think he does it every morning, and he can actually have his like offensive coordinator in his ear. So the offensive coordinator's in the game too. They're running plays together, and some of his teammates are also there, and they're running, you know, really like the defensive side, what they think they're going to run, so that he's prepared at any moment to snap the ball, and he knows exactly where he's going.
Yeah.
And he's such a young quarterback, and he's already made playoffs, so it's interesting to see like how he's training for this moment, because he's kind of like an unknown in the space right now. Like he has a lot to prove.
Again, we're here in Irvine, which
Yeah.
has suddenly turned into not just a tech center, but has turned into an automotive center here in Southern California.
right.
We've got Rivian and other brands and Karma and other things cropping up here. Having said that, we did a car design show a couple years ago, and more of the car designers are putting on the little VR sets just like that because they want to touch the car. They want to sit in the car. They don't want to just look at it on a board. They want to slip in and say, "Oh, my head hits," and do this and what does the driving experience feel like and stuff, because it's all about experiential stuff. So your kid's sitting there playing video games, you say, "Get off the console." You may be stopping them from being a VR designer for an automotive industry or
That's
something.
what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so crazy to me. I mean, I'm not over the football one still.
That was cool.
And it's just, someone has to make those VR headsets. Someone has to program those simulations and put that stuff into effect. So, I mean, as long as you, like, however young you are, however, you know, older you are, if you're in school, if you're not in, you know, college yet, whatever, there's still something for you to look at and be like, this is interesting to me. Because it has to do with video games.
And would you think that if you grew up playing video games or took a real passion to it, that would give you a heads up or a heads above?
100%.
Because I still look at that and it's disorienting to me. I don't feel comfortable in these sets and in these. I've had a couple of guys put them on for me here in the building, and I'm not used to that experience. Whereas if I was watching even not just a 3D game, but a 2D game, it's so unreal to me. It's so strange to me. I can't operate in that space. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I mean, I honestly think that applies to almost anything that's new or, you know, kind of just a little confusing. It's always stuff that you probably just have to look more into, and that's where it just comes back to, you know, what we were talking about last time, we were talking about dedication to something that you really want to do, or something that just really interests you,
Yeah.
then you will go a long way. So, and
Let me
yes,
give you a
video
strange
games get you
example.
a
I
head start.
studied film because that's and radio and TV. That's why I do what I do. I've always loved talking. I love traditional radio, traditional TV, and film. And so I studied a lot of that stuff and had dreams and aspirations and to do all these things. Didn't work out some of the other things, but I did get involved in a lot of Hollywood productions and movies and TV shows and whatnot. Okay, so the whole point of the story is that when they started making films in the 1920s, 1910s and stuff here like that, they didn't know what a film was. And all they did is film stage plays. They had the actors walk out from the wings and walk onto the stage and say their lines and walk off. And the film was just to capture that. And somebody said along the way, nobody knows who, what if we moved the camera? What if we got them from behind or above? And they said, are you crazy? You know how hard that is? Why would you want to do that? And they started to try it, and the audience was freaked out. They'd never seen suddenly I'm seeing a picture of the two of you, and suddenly I'm seeing a close up, and suddenly I'm seeing you from above.
Yeah.
And the audience
Yeah.
would it was like their heads were swirling, and they had to stop it and slow it down. So the average number of cuts where they moved from close up to master shot in an entire movie in 1915 might be 100. Because they had to have long takes where you stood and stared at each other, they like on a stage. Now the average TV commercial has 400, 500, 600 cuts. Boom, 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 rapidly zoom, zip, 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 zip. Cuts, action cuts back and forth. We've trained our eyes to adjust to that. People, I can't adjust to when I watch my grandson play the video game. It almost makes my head spin. It makes me dizzy.
That story actually makes me. That's why I'm excited. That's sort of where I feel like esports is.
Yeah.
And the exponential growth with technology is also going to be a factor here because you know those VR sets. It may not be public yet, but there's something already 10 times better that they're working on, right? So
I'll show you one in the building today.
yeah, exactly. But that it's going to go for games, the tools we use. And this is gonna
Training
AI,
combat,
it's all
training
gonna have a huge
doctors,
influence.
training
Yes.
astronauts, training NFL players. Yeah,
And what
right.
we talked about, I think it also aligns with other industries, not just this concept. So you mentioned flight, and I took some flight lessons recently. So I was flying Cessnas, and what I learned about, you can get your license at 16, and part of your actual flight hours, I think it's close to 10 to 15%, can actually be done on their
On the
simulators.
sims. Wow.
And that counts as your hours towards your actual license. And it's because, one, these rigs are so great. They're so real. You can do so much with the panels that you can't do in the plane. Right? Up in the air is really hard to learn because it's really loud. And there's a lot of just factors you're just trying to maintain in the air. So as a learner, being able to sit with the actual panels in front of you, and they're using Microsoft Simulator on the screen. And Microsoft Simulator is incredible because it's an actual map of actual cities. So I went to Long Beach to learn how to fly, and the airport was mapped to Long Beach. So when I went up in the air, it was exactly what I saw in the simulator. From the buildings down below to the landmarks to, you know, the boats in the river, or I'm sorry, the ocean. You can see everything on the simulator before you even get up in the air. So that's why it counts, because it's so realistic. And you
Yet
can actually
most
learn
of the
so much
people who
more.
come into Valhallan Lake Forest Center are the parents saying, just it keeps them happy and good and let's and a positive team thing. And
I mean,
and
if
stuff.
they want to break my heart, then yes, they would say that. But honestly, I think a lot of them that have been there now have really started to see that, you know, it's like, oh, my kid is actually taking school more seriously now because he wants to make sure that he keeps coming back. He wants to make sure he's keeping himself healthy. He goes outside every day for at least 20 to 30 minutes and does something outside. He's
Interesting.
drinking water. He's eating right. He's doing all this stuff so that he makes sure that he's a good
And he's
sports
thinking of
player.
other things like
Interesting.
maybe virtual reality and other sorts of things.
Yeah,
and stuff.
a couple of them are pretty
or
interested in it.
broadcasting, sportscasting, or other sorts of things here.
I think the kids have a better understanding than the parents most of the time. They
think
just
they
don't.
do.
They can't quite express it,
Yes.
but they see, I think, the vision that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
and
a
that's
lot
what
of
we're
time.
here to do.
Young-
When the kids
Yeah.
come in, is it still just this is cool and fun and thank God I get to do it, or do they still have dreams and aspirations that I'm going to be famous from playing? I'm going to be the Twitch guy. Is that do they see
They do.
Did they see a world beyond that, or is that just all they're focused on?
I genuinely, a lot of them actually still have like their, like one of them, I don't want to say his name at all, but
No.
he actually wants to be. I think he said like Olympic, like water polo or Olympic swimming, something like that, when he's older. And then there's other ones who say that they want to go into the esports field, like being a shoutcaster. They watched one thing that I showed them during a lesson, and then they were like, they sound like they're crazy, but
Yeah.
they're saying the game and they know it so well. Like, I know the game, I can do that. So it's really awesome to see that.
I also see, especially with Vince, because he's there every single day, the kids actually find such a community in this space.
Yeah.
I think I think there's two factors here. One, we know that near peer mentors have such an impact on the actual kids and the outcome in anything. This could be tutoring, this could be esports, right? So
That
having
one
someone like
teacher
him
that
there,
says to you, you can do something, or here's something you've never
Huge.
thought of before.
yes.
Huge.
So it's incredibly validating, and the fact that there's other kids their age, those peer-to-peer interactions are happening too. So they may leave having aspirations, but they're also staying and enjoying their time because their interest is being validated by an adult and some of the other kids that they may not have interacted with. So they may not have those friends at school or in their community. So Valhallan is actually sort of that safe place where they can validate what they love. And then we can actually, as the adults in the room, expand it for them, open their eyes to all these new opportunities and what could be done.
We're going to wrap up in a second, but I got to give you one chance to do a shout out about other ways that people can come and just sample this over at your facility. And one of them was this, talk about this.
Yeah, no,
Fortnite.
We've had it in the past, but now we're trying to bring it back. This Friday, we actually have a Fortnite Friday. So anyone that loves playing Fortnite, come and check us out.
Like my 10-year-old grandson.
Yeah, exactly. And then actually coming up in February, we got the Super Bowl. We're actually going to have a Super Bowl party. So we're going to have it up on the TVs. We're going to have people
Cool.
playing games they want. You know, we're gonna
So
have
what
snacks
happens
and
at a
stuff.
Fortnite Friday? How long? What happens? What's the cost? Or what? Give me the details.
So I know it's about 3 hours long, and then it's basically a part of it is us having fun, but then another part of it is kind of just getting a taste of what Valhallan can do for you. So
Okay.
you call over a coach, or in this instance me, and you need help with your building, your editing, just any gameplay stuff that you need.
And is this
I
a
can help
free
you out.
trial? Because normally there's a charge to obviously come over and use your facilities or be part of these teams or whatever.
Honestly, if anyone is like really wants to come and just see what we can do, I would offer it to them to just try it out. But I
To
also,
our listeners only here today.
Yes. But for anyone else, we do have our website of Valhallan.com where you can come and just you can actually register. I believe it's $55 on our website.
Nice.
Okay, and spell Valhallan. It's on the
Yes.
board there, but
Yeah, it's Valhallan.
and Valhallan we had them on before we met you. They're based where in Texas, and they're building these franchise systems all
Exactly.
across the country. You're their first franchisor in Southern California or in Orange County. I forgot.
In Orange County,
So
or
the-
it might actually be Southern California as
Wider,
well.
yeah.
Yes.
But there's a whole bunch of these popping up, and they're more than just like a internet cafe where you can just log on and play. There's real coaches. You got training. Give me 30 seconds on what that looks like. What as a parent? Oh my God, I'm going to leave these kids there, and they're just going to be wild and unsupervised.
Well, actually, yeah, no, it's Monday through Thursday, 4:30 to 6:30, and these players come together as a team. 1 hour of that time is actually spent off of the computer and kind of actually looking at me and the board, where we're actually going over a lesson for the day, including a healthy habit lesson to kind of just get them into a right mindset so that they can keep excelling
A
as
lot
players.
of it's in your head, yeah.
Yes,
If
exactly.
you're going to compete, am I going to quit? Am I going to scream? I watch my grandson stomp out or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're here to do. And then the other half of that is actually dedicated to our league play, where we play against all the other Valhallans or organizations across the U.S. It's a
How
whole
cool is
lot of
that?
fun
I'd
to
say
see
like
and watch.
if parents need a new perspective on this, if
Yeah.
if they're running in these tournaments, you have these kids going to these clubs, etc., on a regular basis. These are things that you could put in your quote unquote kid's profile,
Yeah.
meaning like if you do rec basketball when you're young and you want to try out for the varsity team later, all of these things stack up. So if they're interested in esports by the time they get to high school or even college and they're looking for those scholarships, the fact that they were in Valhallan for X amount of time is actually leverage for you to step into that. And I think over the next few years, that's going to be super important.
Yes.
If you've started anywhere.
Please
This
give
is
me a
incredibly
scholarship for my 10-year-old. Anything.
Yeah, because he loves Fortnite. But what else has he done? Well, he's been in these tournaments. He's been coached already. All of this stuff actually adds a lot of value to your kid later.
And I'm going to
Yes.
tell you, as a parent myself, when his mother, my daughter, was going through this 15 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, we would literally sit around and say, what do we think of this sport? I don't even know what the sport is, but there's only 10 kids in it. There's a better chance to get a scholarship. We should all do lacrosse or something here. And I'd go to my daughter and she'd, I don't even know what lacrosse is. Yeah, you're in lacrosse, you know. We're going to put you in there.
Yeah.
We're so desperate because of the cost of college here that any hope we can get of getting some assistance is just salivating to most parents here.
Yeah.
And there are scholarships for esports popping up now here.
Oh, 100%. Almost every college now, even community colleges, they have a presence.
List.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential that's still untapped. And again, it rotates a lot. So kids that graduate, there's always a new slot. This is a little irrelevant, but I saw a statistic earlier that said that even on TikTok and these creators, etc., even gaming creators, they only make up like 4% of the total youth. Which we think it's so saturated, but it's really not. Like if you can get started early and just be consistent in some of this stuff, even esports or your own brand, getting out now, it's such an opportunity.
Yeah.
A lot of people just don't try or haven't actually dipped their feet wet or made it a commitment.
So how do they try? How do they find out more about try before they buy? How do they try at Valhallan here?
Well, I mean, if you're truly interested, again, you can go to Valhallan.com, VALHALLAN.com, and you request more information, and we will give the information to you about how you can get started and even try us out.
They can actually come out and sample it and watch a tournament, I guess, for free and stuff, and
Yes.
see what's happening there. And
If you really want to see one, you can actually come to our Saturday tournament. If
There
you
you
really
go.
want to watch us
and see what
do
goes
we do.
on. Yeah.
I'm now working with Valhallan as well.
Are you? Okay.
I am. So I'm now their community manager. I'm helping
They
them out. So you'll
sucked
see
you
me
in
around.
like the Godfather here just when
No,
you
I
thought
was
you were getting
excited.
out.
I couldn't believe it. I'm excited to work with them. So
Well, I'm excited
you'll
to
see
have
more.
them on. I'm excited to have this show here, and I'm sorry if I act like an old judge, but
Not
I
at all.
just this
No,
is
we love it.
this is a world that is being birthed all around us, and it's right here, right now, and the opportunities are immense to get in the ground floor on a business level, on a sports level, on a motivational level. I don't know. I'm
Think that you can build it at this point.
think that you can build it. All right, one last time. The website is.
Valhallan.com, spelled VALHALLAN.
Thank you guys for coming. Take us out.
Thank
Give
you.
us
Thanks for having me.
any final thoughts here? Or you take us out here.
I got 3 words for any younger kids out there who want to do something with esports. It's consistency, dedication, and passion.
There you go.
That's what I'll say.
I
Alright.
love that. That's our thought for today. Thanks for joining us here. Well, there you have it. I just can't get enough of this show. And if you're like me and you got kids or grandkids that are playing this stuff already, why not see if you can turn that passion into a profession or into something even greater or higher here, or just something they love to do. All of that and more we're going to explore on the Valhallan Lake Forest Esports Connection, right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studios here at UCI.